The Boys Season 3, Episode 1, 2 and 3 explained. The Boys is back on our screens after around a year and a half hiatus, and we've been gifted with not one, not two, but 3 brand new episodes to kickstart the season. With that, I thought I'd jump into them and break down and explain all that there is about the episodes. So let's get into it. Here is The Boys Season 3, the first 3 episodes explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. I've broken this video down into 3 parts, Episode 1, Episode 2, and Episode 3. Episode 1. This was our first reintroduction to the story where we left off at the end of Season 2. We saw this being set precisely 1 year after the events that occurred with Stormfront causing major disruption, Ryan killing his mother, and then having to go to a safe house to keep them away from Homelander. We saw the episode open up at a movie premiere where Stormfront had been recast but all of the other members were the same. We kept seeing Homelander being interviewed by multiple stations, and he was giving off the same response to all of them, stating how he's only human, how he's just like everybody else, and how he makes mistakes. This was in response to being in love with Stormfront. We know that this was something that he was told to say because he said it in every interview. And Ashley was always on top of the media training. The execution delivered that extremely well. I thought there was quite a poignant moment in this section, and it was where we saw A-Train and Hughie standing together with their arms around each other. The whole journey started when Hughie's girlfriend at the time was run through by A-Train, and he despised him for it. And now they're in a situation where they have to pretend and have their arms around each other. It showed just how messed up things had become, and the journey that they'd all been on. After this, we saw that Butcher, Frenchie, and Kimiko were off hunting a soup, and when I say it was quite literally the most disgusting scene we've seen in the show, it certainly was. I don't need to go into detail, but we had our first moments of gore within the first 12 minutes of the show, and it was something that I don't think any other show other than this one could get away with. From here, we were introduced to Hughie again, who was working for the FBSA, with the intentions of taking down Vought in a clean way, and as Newman described it, without being filled with blood, despite the fact that she's probably one of the main causes for the bloodshed that we see. Nobody at this point knew that she was a soup, so she was under the radar. Throughout the episode, Homelander's mental state was something that was quite a main focus. We saw him struggling to deal with the backlash that he appeared to be getting from being in a relationship with Stormfront. All of the events from Season 2 of the show had caused his rating levels to drop, and you could see the weight it was having on him. Homelander at his core is a character that thrives and survives off being loved by the people, and without that, he crumbles and turns to the evil side that he has. We saw that he was still caring for Stormfront, an extremely disfigured one, but he appeared to still have feelings for her despite everything that she'd done. I was quite surprised when we saw that, to be honest, but it didn't look like she'd held up well following the Season 2 finale. A main revelation that we had in this episode was Queen Maeve becoming aware of V24, and supplying it to Butcher. V24, which I imagine is Vought 24 hours, essentially allows you to become a soup for 24 hours and 24 hours only. Vought planned on supplying it to the military in the long run, but Queen Maeve provided some to Butcher after she arranged to meet with him. This was to essentially help him in his quest to find the weapon that killed Soldier Boy, and would then be utilized to kill Homelander. At the end of the episode, it was clear to see that everybody was essentially against Homelander, so much so that Stan had even appointed Starlight as co-captain of the Seven, and she now had important decisions to make when it came to the new recruit program that was going on. The closing moment that we saw in the episode was focused around the gentleman that came to see Newman, but was claiming her name to be Nadia. This was something that sparked Hughie's interest and led him to follow them after work. He saw Newman pop his head and see that she was in fact a soup, and everything that she'd been telling him had been a complete lie. You could see that she didn't necessarily want to kill her friend, but the risk of her position being jeopardized was something that was far more important to her. The first episode really outlined the main things for us to consider moving forward in this season: the hunt for the weapon that killed Soldier Boy, the aim to take down Homelander, and Hughie and Starlight's relationship being something that could potentially be tested by the new addition in the Seven. Episode 2. The second episode allowed us to dig into the specifics a bit more. Following on from the foundations being set up in Episode 1, we saw Hughie and Starlight's scene in the house during the opening again. This was almost a repeat of what we saw in Episode 1. Hughie not being able to open a jar and needing his partner, which is a soup, to be able to open it. I think this symbolizes a divide in the pair and something which will tap into a wider rift later on in the season. I think she's going to fall for the new recruit, who she previously had a thing with, or Hughie is going to presume that, and the human/soup divide is something that will be brought up to support the argument. We also got to delve into Mother's Milk's family being killed by Soldier Boy. Judging by the newspaper articles that we could see, it looked as though Soldier Boy was a bit like Homelander, in the sense that there would be a focus of overkill. He wouldn't capture and hand people to the police, he would take matters into his own hands. We saw that Soldier Boy was also cleared of charges, which shone a light on the resentment that Marvin has. We witnessed the plot thicken and the investigation get more underway in the hunt for the weapon that killed Soldier Boy. Kimiko and Frenchie went and met with Crimson Countess, who worked with Soldier Boy back in the day, but was now working in an amusement park. She didn't reveal any riveting details and she evaded the pair whilst killing some innocent people. This highlighted the reckless nature that the Seven have and have always had. They act without thinking of the consequences. Homelander's pride was getting eaten on more and more as Stan was allowing decisions to go through him without running through Homelander. And I feel we saw it almost reach the boiling point where he was on the roof intending to stop somebody from jumping. However, the news of Stormfront dying was something that put his mind in that evil mindset that he adopts, and forced her to jump off, something that she didn't want to do. That was the main turning point in the episode for the character. Rage was all he saw and he made her jump. The climax of Homelander's emotions, though, were in the final scene where we saw him on stage contradicting everything that he said in the opening scene of episode 1, where he claimed to be human and just like everybody else, he was now saying that he was far greater than everybody else, and is special and better. He'd had enough and you could see him snapping. Alongside this arc happening, we saw Butcher take V-24 for the first time, as he took on Gunpowder with the intention of getting information about Soldier Boy. You could see him getting a sense of enjoyment out of the power that he held, and the addiction that I think is going to occur later on down the line. He himself was utilizing overkill, and you could see his hatred for Soups coming out when he just simply couldn't stop himself, and said it's because of what you are. The final revelation that we had in this episode was on Newman when she was younger. We saw Stan meeting with her, caring for her, and almost being like a father figure to her, something we didn't previously know. Nor have we seen him act like towards any other members in the Seven before. Hughie took the information from the orphanage that he was at, and was able to see all of the damage and destruction that she'd caused over the years, and informed everybody else in the gang, leading them to all get back together. Episode 3. The third episode in the season saw us start off with Starlight 17 years prior to the present day, in Little Miss Hero. It was something that she clearly didn't want to do and was being made to do it. And the poignant thing to take away from this was the clenching of the fist at the end of the opening scene. The final shot of this episode was her doing the same thing but in the present day, after pretending to be in a relationship with Homelander on screen for the viewers, something that she doesn't want to do. This must be something that she does to enable her to channel her energy and her powers to keep her calm and contain all of the stress. It was a nice touch for the episode to finish on that, especially with the song from the opening scene playing in the background. After the opening sequence, we went on to see the repercussions of Homelander's outburst on stage, and it actually had the opposite effect to what everybody believed it would. His point system went up as an individual, and his joint point system with Starlight went up to the highest that they'd ever seen before. Homelander definitely got his confidence back once that was said to him, and it gave him the spring in his step that he needed, but also the confidence to go back to being ruthless and cruel in the way that he behaves. He realized that all of the things people had been saying to him over the years were wrong, and he should have been true to himself all along. This is something that definitely doesn't bode well for the future, and we saw this when Starlight threatened him with the video of the plane from earlier on in the show, where he said that if she does leak it, then he will essentially start destroying the city, because if he can't be loved, then feared is the next best thing. Harrowing words to come from him. We saw the gang go to the safe house where Ryan was being kept, and it was here where we got to see a step back in time, where we saw Soldier Boy and the former Seven in action. We saw the incompetence of the Seven back then, other than Soldier Boy. He appeared to be the only well-equipped one. We also got to see Black Noir without a mask, which was our first true revelation, and also the reason why he always wears it, because his face was disfigured during a battle that occurred there. The Russian troops that attacked the base and killed Soldier Boy with the specialized weapon that they had, then took the body back with them to Russia, which then tied into Frenchie's mini-arc in this episode. He met with little Nina, who is Russian, which now means that they're now likely going to go to Russia with her connections in order to be one step closer to seeking out the weapon. Butcher also had his first reaction to using V-24 for the first time, and it resulted in him being unable to control what was happening and extreme vomiting. He also lashed out on Ryan, which was something that felt a little out of character, considering how he'd been behaving with him, but I feel this was likely due to the stress of the situation, and he clearly regretted it afterwards. It seems that by the first 3 episodes that we've been given, the main focus of the season is going to be in Homelander seeking more and more control as he realizes that people prefer his honesty, but it's going to get to a point where it's going to be damaging. And it also appears that everybody else is on the hunt to find the weapon that was used to kill Soldier Boy, so they can use it on Homelander to stop his madness. I think the season is almost going to be centered around this line between Homelander and Butcher, which occurred in episode 1. Homelander mentioned how in the end there's going to be only one of them left standing, and it certainly feels like that's going to be the case. It was a great first 3 episodes, and I'm looking forward to see what comes next. What did you think of the first 3 episodes? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.